Welcome to Navigate with Tim Austin, a podcast created to help take some of the guesswork out of transition. And I'm Tim Austin, the host of Navigate, and it is good to be back with you after several months break. We are officially kicking off a new season today with my special returning guest, Heidi Lewerenz. And Heidi is a leadership coach and trainer from Wisconsin, where you can mow your lawn and shovel snow all in the same day. And she's created and owns a handful of businesses, started a few ministries, and burned many things in the oven. She has a BA in communications, holds multiple coaching and training certifications, and delights in helping entrepreneurs be present and profitable using the Microseason Method. And we're going to learn more about that today. And Heidi lives in Wisconsin with her husband and their houseful of 7 kids, ages 4 to 19. And she's been a Midwest redhead all her life and frequently dreams of moving closer to the equator. Don't we all, especially this time of year? After listening to today's episode, you'll want to go back and listen to episode 48, where Heidi and I talk about some of life's resets. And Heidi, I don't know if you remember that conversation, but I remember it as a good conversation. And I think our listeners, if you haven't already, would benefit from going back to that episode 48. Heidi is a gifted coach, communicator, and amazing networker, and truly knows how to bring people together for thoughtful work and conversations. So you're in for a real treat today. And so, Heidi, welcome.
Thank you, Tim. It's such an honor to be back on your show. I just so appreciate the work you do, helping leaders navigate all the different phases of change, and it's just beautiful to see how you embrace those moments with them.
Well, thank you. And it's so good that we can be back together and have this conversation today. I appreciate so much of what you bring to the entrepreneur world, to the coaching world, to just offering your gifts and skill sets so generously. So I want to take some time today to, first of all, for you to fill in our listeners what's been happening. Maybe just a reminder, who is Heidi? What does she do? A little bit more than what I said, maybe tack on to that, whatever you'd like. And then just we're going to dive into something that you call Microseason methods. And I'm looking forward to having that conversation.
Awesome. Me too. Well, thanks. I did think, as you're reading my bio, I should probably update those ages. Everyone's a little bit older now. We have 6 kids at home, as our oldest went back to college. So we're kind of in this season, and I'm learning how to live this way where people come and go. Like they move home, then they move out, and they move home and they move out. We have 4 months till like 3 of our kids go and work all summer at camp. And then we launch another one. You know, she graduates this spring, and so she'll not be coming home. So that's lots of transition on the family landscape. Work-wise, still doing a lot of work with entrepreneurs around work-life rhythm, you know, and how to create those healthy, sustainable rhythms and be present, you know, to kind of turn off that track in your mind that's like, you need to keep doing, it's not enough. When you're at work, you're thinking about home. When you're at home, you're thinking about work, right? And then just to still be profitable in each season. So we just had a planning and vision retreat. This is the third time I've actually had a retreat around the Microseason Method. And God is just really blessing that. We had an awesome time of worship because we really aligned our planning and our hearts before we went into our planning, I should say. And so that was a cool experiment, and it was a lot of fun. So work-wise, things are developing around work-life rhythm.
Great. And was this latest retreat, it was virtual or in person?
It was actually in person.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. And I thought about doing one virtually. I just can't figure out, all the details about like the music and the delivering some of that content. It was a retreat space too, versus just a training. And I think people really appreciated being able to get away just for a day. No one had to figure out childcare for overnight or pay for staying overnight. But I would love, it's funny you bring that up, because I would love to offer it online sometime soon.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like such a opportune time as well, this time of year, as we get the new year going here, to have something like that to set yourself up for success in the new year. Mm-hmm. And we know that that's those plans, dreams, goals can be interrupted and disrupted, and we need to have those reset moments along the way as well. And I think some of what you've talked about so far that I've learned about your microseason method, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. But like I said, I've heard you talk about microseasons, and it really does intrigue me, especially in how it might relate to navigating transitions, which I do a lot of work in. So first off, tell our listeners, what is a microseason and how might we notice that we're in one?
Oh, what a great question. I love that you asked the noticing question. Well, a microseason is really, I love words. I know you love words. Anybody who loves language loves words, but micro means small. It's micros from the Latin root of that. And season actually has a Latin root word that means sowing, not like needle sewing, but like planting and sowing. And even in French, the word has the same sound. It sounds like season. So that word has become not just planting, but reaping and harvesting, like a whole 4 seasons, right? So when we think about micro seasons, it's a small period of planting, reaping, resting. The ground has to rest. And you might notice that you're in one. Well, actually, you're always in a micro season.
Okay. Tell us more about that. If we're always in a micro season, then the question becomes, what kind of season is this, or how do I approach it, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really. So the idea of this microseason method is looking at the years of our lives, the months of our lives in small chunks. And there are natural ways that these microseasons break up. Sometimes they're broken up by fiscal years, in business, it's Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And whether, if that starts in July or that starts in September, that starts in January, sometimes they're broken up by holidays, depending on where you live. Business shuts down or your family celebrates a ton. And so life looks different before and after, say in America, Thanksgiving and Christmas. And between that time, life just looks a lot different than it does the rest of the year. Summertime in America, when the schools are out, life looks different then. So really the microseason mindset is looking at your calendar year, kind of like a timeline, and saying, okay, well, let's just start with January because that's when our calendar starts, and start making little tick marks along the paper. Like, where are there some natural breaks? Is Easter a natural break for you? Is spring break, if you have kids in school, is that a natural break for you? Is it your big quarterly marketing meeting for work? Is it Lent in the church year? There's sometimes Lent and Advent, and the church calendar kind of dictates some of those micro seasons. So it's generally a period of time that's around 90 days, probably no less than 60. Although I do have like a 3-week micro season for myself. Mm-hmm. So you're always in one because you're always living life, but it's just determining, it's kind of like, well, what's the bookends? What have I just left? That's kind of a bookend. And what am I going toward? That's the next milestone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
Okay. I would like you to ask me some questions to help me determine what micro season I might be needing to notice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do it.
All right.
So Tim, what have you noticed in the last month around your energy?
Past month. Well, I think my energy level has been actually pretty good. I made an intentional decision to get out there and keep walking, go to the gym, and kind of put that into my weekly rhythm. So I'm feeling physically, I feel like pretty high energy.
Yeah.
But I've also, before moving into the new year, I also was intentional about deciding, like, I'm not going to just jump right in and just at a very fast pace. I'm going to take some time to reflect and to actually intentionally move forward, and not just all of a sudden switch gears. Because you know how the holiday season, Christmas, and coming into the new year, you're at a different place already. Right. And I didn't want to really lose that right away. I wanted to transit. And thankfully, I have some freedom and flexibility to say when I really want to maybe start a new project or. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I hear you're kind of slow starting, but with intention in this new year. And you kind of coined the new year. So would you say the new year is kind of a turning point? Like, is that where you would turn a page and say this is a starting point?
I think so. Yeah. For me, it's new year, but not necessarily January 1st, but it is within this first month of the year that I'm beginning to engage more and starting up things.
Sure. And you had mentioned even before the new year, this holiday season.
Yeah.
So would you say that is that a different time period between, like, preceding the new year?
Yeah, it definitely is. Don't schedule a lot then. Make, family time a priority. And again, some more reflective exercises, but yeah.
Okay. So when would you say that starts for you? That holiday
season? That starts like a few days before Christmas. Yeah.
Okay. So a few days before Christmas,
right?
I hear there's kind of a shift. And so that might be a micro season for you. Or maybe you even want to tag on the couple of weeks before that, if you're starting to slow down, because you're like, you see the end, right?
Yeah.
And so you're in right now, it sounds like the new year ended that holiday vibe, holiday micro season. So you're in a new year season. When do you naturally shift from sort of the newness of January into something different?
Yeah, that depends. But usually it's after the first, like when the full first week of January hits for me.
Okay. So maybe like the 7th, 8th, or 9th, or 10th, or something like that.
Yeah, whatever that might be, that kind of Monday, that's the first full Monday, that signals the first full week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for you, when you hear yourself talk about the new year and when you're taking breaks and when you sort of slow start back up, what do you hear?
So as you walked me through that, I do think that it is just, that several days before Christmas up until, up through the first week or so of the new year. So am I seeing that correctly? Could that be a micro season?
That could totally be your micro season. Okay. Yes. And a lot of people that live in the US have a micro season around the holidays into the new year. And I love that you said it's not January 1st, because most people, when we start looking at this, recognize that if we say that's the 1st of January, we're already behind.
Right.
Because New Year's Day is a holiday here. And, you have to, there's a ramp. There's like a runway, right? To get back in the groove. And so to give yourself permission to say, you know what, this is a transition week or two for me. I'm in this holiday New Year micro season. And so I'm really going to be full speed or, full engagement, say by the 16th. And then I would say that would start a new micro season for you. So January 16th until maybe it's the end of Q1, or maybe it's, 60 days or.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I kind of like to look at the 90-day increments. So, but maybe within that there could be, and there probably is now that I'm talking with you about this, there could be some micro seasons within that 90 days that I could be noticing or more aware of and intentional around.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great job. Great job sort of talking through that.
So that's helpful. Because, I think when we think about micro seasons, gosh, you can think really short, or you can think like weeks, even maybe. I mean, you said you have one that's like 3 weeks, right? So I've
been toying with that. Yeah, I have one that is pretty much Thanksgiving till January 10th. So Thanksgiving in the US, November 28th or 26th or something.
Yeah.
Till January 10th. Everything just looks different.
Sure.
But I also start but then I have a short Q1. So
Okay.
I go January 11th to March 30th.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So there's freedom and flexibility in that to discern and decide and all of that. So to me, what's interesting, it's intriguing that microseasons essentially, they happen to us. Like you said, they're on the calendar, they're events, they just kind of happen in life. But
yeah, they're natural rhythms, or if you follow a sports season, or if you play in a sport, or you have a child that plays in a sport, that can be it's a sports season, but it's a micro season when it's like bleacher season or running around all over the state season. So sorry, go ahead, Tim.
No, that's good. And so in one sense, they're kind of out of our control, but they can also be designed or programmed into our lives intentionally. And is that what I'm hearing? Tell us a little bit more. How do you help people do that?
Well, I kind of use microseasons as an anchor point. I mean, when things happen to us that are out of our control, it's anchoring to say, okay, we don't have to figure out how to solve this forever. We don't even have to figure out what the end game is. We just need to maybe survive or thrive for the next 90 days. So it's a micro season of maybe you need to move. Maybe you need to find a new job. Maybe you need to, go into recovery. Maybe you have to help someone in your family do something like that. And so it's stabilizing when you have an unwanted or unplanned transition. It gives you a short window to focus on, and that allows you to be adaptable and nimble, like to stay nimble in all of that. But the planning side of things in business or ministry and family, the beauty of the Microseason Method is that we plan our relationships and our work in tandem, so it's like a one sheet where you see the 5 big buckets of your life, and you get to decide through another process what's important to you about those and what success looks like and what God's calling you to do in each of those. But it's really been helpful when to see like it's almost like a heart monitor, where it goes super high or super low. Like the energy that's needed at work is super high if you're launching a product or it's Christmas and you're a pastor. So you're not going to plan a family vacation during that time. You're not going to be, you're going to have to look at your goals for relationships in a different micro season.
Yeah.
But as long as you can tend to the things that matter in different seasons, they all still grow and thrive.
So it's the things that matter. And you said, does that kind of, when we talk about things that matter, I think of values, relationships, I think maybe anchor points, or would those be the things that matter? You mentioned anchor points. Unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think when we were talking about it, maybe I used it when we were talking about anchor points just before we got on the recording. I was thinking more about those things that keep us healthy. So like you going to the gym, you taking a walk, right? Quiet time with the Lord, connection once a week with your spouse. Like maybe that's a date night. Maybe that's, sitting on the bleachers together. Maybe it's ballroom dancing if you're an empty nester. I hear everybody who gets to be empty nesters goes and learns how to ballroom dance. But what was your question about before you said anchor points, but
yeah. And I was trying to tie them to values, but what I think hear you saying, is that the anchor points are things we do. They could be rhythms, routines that we actually do, but they are hopefully have their foundation or their grounding in those values.
Correct. Yes. Values values and relationships. And I find that most of this work around microseasons it's really helpful to people who are high task. It's helpful to people who are high relationship too, if they're lacking in their ability to get stuff done. But so often it's the hyperdrive person who is like task. And they sacrifice what's important on the altar of what gets noticed.
Yes. Yeah.
And And I've been guilty of that in my own life. And so when I talk about what matters for me, it's eternal things. So it's the souls of the people in my home that God has given me to steward. It's the people in a ministry that God has put me over to lead and influence, and it's my clients. But I can't sacrifice any one of those groups. They all have to be served in tandem, and so that's what I mean about what matters is just focusing on. So we have what we call snapshots of success. Okay. And so it's taking those 5 bucket areas and defining what success looks like in those for the micro season.
Okay.
So for right now, my micro season of success in my business is to read a book called Profit First and implement it.
Okay.
I have big annual goals, but like to break it down just to say that's what I'm focusing on right now.
Yeah.
We aren't running for sports. So it's right now, this season, we have 3 months of no sports running. So I'm going to try to engage with each of my kids, like go on dates. It's our time where we schedule one-on-one dates with our kids. It's really stinking cold here. So there's a lot of things that we could, there's a lot more time to maybe just go get a coffee or go for a walk, at the gym. So
yeah, good. I love what you said. There are things you said that we align our time with what we value. Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's some time management work there, or time stewardship, whatever you want to call that, so that we don't accidentally, quote unquote. I mean, it is, we have to be intentional about this. Right. So that we don't accidentally sacrifice what matters on the altar of what gets noticed. So what rises to the surface at times is oftentimes what we notice, but it can be not the important thing.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And that's life.
That's life. And sometimes things that get noticed by others, the accolades or just the people out there. I think that we can sometimes, depending on how we're wired, we can gravitate to doing those things versus the things that matter. And sometimes the things that matter are hidden.
Yes, they're hidden and oftentimes or just ignored, and or pushed off to the side. So, but this whole area, you said it requires a mindset and shift, and I think that that's so true. What are some ways that you work with somebody who comes in? Maybe they're a high task oriented person who comes in and wants some support in this area. How do you help them make those shifts and adjustments to slow down? Because that really is a slowing down process, a little more reflection involved there. What are some ways you help folks do that?
Well, like you said, it is a process. So I think when someone comes to you or to me as a coach and they're like, there's a struggle, so they're willing to listen to what it is. If we say, okay, why don't you try practicing stillness or try practicing just slowing down a bit, starting with the values work. I know I have a values card sorting exercise that people come up with their 6 core values, and they need to be across the board, right? And I think you do this too with your clients' values work. And it's not just, my values at the office or my values at church or my values at home. It's like who you are, what do you value across the board, no matter what hat you have on. Okay. And so just doing that work brings a certain awareness to people of like, I guess what is important to me, even though I'm so task focused, it's because I care about the internal implication, or I guess I'm just talking about myself. I have a value of eternal purpose. And so that is key for me in relationships. Like it draws me because I care about eternity. That's what draws me to relationships.
Yeah.
And so helping people connect their values to the relationships in their lives and like the callings or the tasks that God's given them to do in their lives is huge. And then I know we talk about this in the real life process too, but the importance of a reset, having the time, setting specific times in your calendar where you review, what it is that you said mattered. And then I add one too, like the retreating is huge for me, probably because I have so many people that live in my house. I just need to get away, or maybe it's just the way I'm wired. If I'm home or, I just get distracted. So going away to spend that time with God, disconnecting from social media, disconnecting from email, disconnecting really from my phone. The retreat center just has a number, and if there's an emergency, they will come find me at the cabin.
Yep.
So just, talking through some of those aspects of soul care and slowing down does create the space for people to take a look at their life and create a mindset, a new mindset. So the microseason mindset is really not an annual mindset. It's based on the work from the 12-week year. And they talk about, like, it's thinking of a year, thinking of completion in 3 months. So what is completed in 3 months? And then you're going to stack these bricks of 3-month completion to build something. Yeah. But it's not that you have to be in it for 12 months. And so what I love about this, because so much of ministry and so much of parenting and so much of marriage and so much of life is a long game.
Yes, right.
And entrepreneurship is a long game.
Yeah.
So it's easy to get discouraged, and it's easy to get lost, in what you've been called to do. And so this mindset keeps you really focused. It's 3 months, it's hard to forget stuff in 3 months. It's
right. Yeah. Yeah. And it gives you that sense of freedom and flexibility. It was a game changer for me when I started implementing a 90-day approach to the desired outcomes, the goals, the projects that I had on my heart and on my mind. That really helped me to know that, like, I'm going to be revisiting this in 90 days or so. I don't have to have everything completed. And that's why we have some mile markers and measurables, like you called them success. Were they success stories?
Snapshots of success. Yeah.
Snapshots of success. Those are great to have along the way, I think. And then, so then you get there and you're not like, oh, the goal's not accomplished, or I'm only halfway there, but you can actually celebrate some wins and then do that reset. And so it was a game changer for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a game changer. I mean, what did that do to your perspective and your energy?
Yeah, what it does is it gives me I'm a real, like, kind of all or nothing. By kind of the way I'm wired, it's kind of all or nothing. If I don't reach this goal that I had, then whatever, I'll get down on myself, or I'll want to give up, or I'll want to start something different, or, but with this approach, I'm actually measuring along the way in a 12-month year. I'm actually measuring at least 4 times, but then I do, like we do with the real life process, I do a weekly review as well. So that gives me even those smaller increments to kind of recalibrate when I need to. And so, like you said, I think it just helps with mindset sustainability as well, and gives you hope that, the timeline may shift or change, but we can still kind of stay on track. Yeah.
Yes. So true. It gives hope. And I think it also, like you said, it eliminates that all or nothing. And it also eliminates the either or. Like, I can either be a parent or start a business, or I can either be a great dad or an awesome pastor, or I can either do overseas missions or have a family. It's like, no, if God's called you to more than one specific track, they can all run alongside each other. It's just, this is a process. This is a method by which you manage those tracks, so things don't get derailed, right?
Yeah, that's good. I love that. Yeah, how to manage that is so important. And all of this, I think, really ties in well to navigating transition, Heidi. There are like transitions within transition, right? Mini transitions.
Right. Micro transitions,
we
right?
can call them macro and micro transitions, right? So, but I don't want to hijack your language there, but I love.
Tim, take it. It's not my word. It's not my word.
But the micro seasons piece, I think, is really, really. I tend to enjoy life more, get more fulfillment out of life when I look at it in seasons. Maybe it's part of God's design, for us to, the way He's wired creation and put it all together. And how can we best stay in that rhythm and that flow of his design for us?
Mm-hmm.
So this really helps, I think, Heidi, and I love to kind of unpack this today a little bit more with you. Well, we are getting close to the end of our time, but
Sure.
What else would you want to say about microseasons, particularly in the area of if someone's still out there wondering out, where do I start? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And maybe that would be just a kind of a good place to wrap up. Like, how can our listeners connect with you? And on what levels can they connect with you? And that will help us to kind of wrap up today, maybe.
Well, sure. First of all, I just want to thank you so much for this conversation. It's great to just dialogue about it with you. And I do agree, if I can just tag on to what you were saying before I say where people can find me, just the transitions within transitions. And when you have a micro-season mindset, what I love about the hope, like you were alluding to with the transition, is that another season is coming, and when you're in a really long season, the belief that there's micro seasons to that is just, it gives you a little bit of relief. This is what people always used to tell me. Oh, Heidi, it's just a season. Your kids are going to grow up. You'll get back to work. You'll get to do those things. You'll get to travel, go overseas. And then as God called us to keep having children and be open to that, and he kept blessing us, I was like, oh my word, this season is going to be a really long season. Like, I'm going to be 60 now when our youngest is 18. So I'm going to have seasons overlapping with over seasons. So anyway, this idea of micro seasons in transition, it allows you to be really adaptable and allows you to experiment with things. And it just allows you to keep that hope that another season is coming. Like in 90 days, you get to reset and do the next 90 days. You're not stuck, right?
Good.
Yeah. So they can find me at HeidiLewerenz.com. I offer different resources that are free and downloadable. I'm trying to think of what's out there right now, Tim. I should have looked that up. But there is probably a micro-season resource out there that you can download for free. And when you do that, you join my email list. And I only write once a month, but I have tips and tools in there. I collect resources, different podcasts.
You're on Instagram as well, right?
Oh, that's right. I am on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm not on Facebook,
okay.
But I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. And there was one more thought that I just had. I periodically will do retreats. And so the way to know about those is through my email list. And I love to one-on-one coach. I have a number of one-on-one clients that have gone through with the Microseason Method, and it's really helped them create that work-life rhythm and peace in their business and in their family. So those would be the ways.
Super. Heidi, thank you so much. There's so many great takeaways. And I think we could just keep going here, but there's so many good takeaways from our conversation today. And I would encourage our listeners to connect with you on whatever level they feel would be helpful, but especially to get on, your email list and be able to get updates from you as to what's happening and what you're planning. And you're always bringing out something new. Like we were talking earlier, this is an experiment. And I've been saying that a long time now, ever since I started my coaching practice. This is an experiment. I'm going to experiment with this, but experiments are fun. And when we invite other people into them, good things can happen. So
absolutely. I love how you lead with that, Tim. It's really healthy with that transitional space because there's no pressure to get it right.
Right. Yep. So experiment. Yeah, exactly. So experiment. You can always reset, right?
Yes.
And, reflect and reset. So I do consider Heidi a potential resource and a guide for any life and leadership challenge you and or your team may be facing. Heidi, thanks for joining me for this episode of Navigate. And listeners, thank you for joining us. I've been your host, Tim Austin. And if this has been helpful to you, would you mind just taking a few moments to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or whatever listening platform that you use? And that would be really appreciated. And as always, let's have a conversation. If you'd like to learn more about what I do as a coach and how I might be able to support you on your journey, and just reach out at EncompassLifeCoaching.com. Be blessed, stay safe, and We'll catch you next time.